quoting from your own words, you told us that majority of the mental illnesses come from something that happened to us from a young age. And after discussing how we can try to peruse through mental health issues as grown-ups, how are we supposed to take care of ourselves and take care of others in a mental health perspective, that would only solve the problem for now. And I think it is important for us to see how can we solve this mental health issue with the coming generation. How can we preserve the mental health of children? How do we make sure that the cycle is not repeating? The mental illnesses we are facing because of something that happened to us at a young stage, was it on purpose? Was there someone behind my mental health issue right now because of the behavior, the way they treated me when I was still young? If that is the case, I think it is important for us to address how we nurture the coming generation in terms of preserving their mental health. How do we nurture and preserve the mental health of the young generation?
It's like you're indirectly guiding us to be conscious when it comes to victimizing our offsprings, or maybe the coming generation, just because we were in the same experience.
Yes, sometimes maybe. Sometimes someone might be saying, I went through this and I made it in life.
I made it in life.
So I'm sure you are supposed to go through the same.
Yeah.
And maybe because mental health issues are also relative. Something that can traumatize you can easily not traumatize me. Like you can see this by reaction when an accident happens in front of someone. Someone might even fail to continue with their day. They're already affected. But some people look at it and they continue with their day-to-day lives. So you don't assume simply because you made it through that traumatizing situation that everyone is going to find it easy to peruse through.
Actually, it is kind of sensitive because scientifically proved many of our mental illnesses are sourced from childhood. And as we grow up, I think we need to also appreciate the fact that if you are aware of the mental health right now, I think everyone needs to prioritize not sending it to the next generation. The coming generation. Yeah, the coming generation. At least let it stop with you because you're aware about it, and let others not be victimized in the same way, but at least making the environment clean for them. But I think this can be achieved by something like active listening, setting rules and not ultimatums, something like that.
Thank you for talking about active listening. I told you I'm a proud student of the Quran, and when I look at passages, ayat in the Quran, I just don't look at them literally. Sometimes I'm forced to think about them the other side of the coin. When a 10-year-old Yusuf comes to a 70, 80-year-old Yaqub alayhi salam with a dream. يا أبتي إني رأيت 11 كوكبا والشمس والقمر رأيتهم لي ساجدين. Oh dad, I saw a dream, blah blah blah. Now you can imagine if there is anyone anywhere. Maybe we come from Muslim majority families. Maybe some few are coming from other backgrounds. But imagine you talking to your father at 10 years old, 7 years old about a dream. What would be the response from your dad? The response would be, okay, please go play with your mother. Please. The dad will obviously disregard because he thinks he has a lot of things to deal with. And when Yaqub actively listens to his son, Yusuf, he gives him this ear and he pays attention to him. And when I talk about fathers, it really hits different because I've opened the Quran and the stories of parenting are not with mothers. They are with fathers. When you talk about Yaqub, when you talk about Ibrahim, when you talk about Luqman, the mothers are there in the Quran, but we don't learn parenting in the Quran through the mothers. Because just like I told you, Allah teaches you what you couldn't know of your own. It is like parenting in the mothers is natural. But Allah puts parenting in the Quran basically on the fathers, because fathers don't know how to do it in most cases. So when we say active listening, we're actually not talking to the mothers in most cases, because mothers do that.
They actively do that.
Yeah, but we are talking to the dads here, because if you don't listen to, because sometimes why do parents, especially fathers, disregard what a young child is telling them? It is because they see no sense in them. That's what I assume. They see no, maybe the child is narrating
At
to you
that point.
how they played at school. Of course, to you it has no sense, but to them it has sense. And if we disregard what the child is going through right now, in what he terms to be sensible, and you don't consider it sensible, even the things that make sense to you as they grow up, maybe if they're a girl and some boy is disturbing them, they won't feel comfortable talking to you about this case, because the last time they came to you talking about, you are not actively listening, you are disregarding them. So when we actively listen, we open doors of open conversations that these children, this young generation feels free to talk to us about anything, because we are their source of support.
And actually the guidance comes from you, so it doesn't make sense to guide someone when you don't know what they're going through. And active listening, this is what I would basically understand if we are using the word active and listening. There's a lot to learn from someone who is listening. Like, if you listen, you learn a lot than someone who overspeaks. Someone who listens actively has the ability to learn from the said and from the unsaid, because you're tasking yourself to read the tonation, you're tasking yourself to read the expression, you're tasking yourself, like you're actively listening and reading whatever is coming with that. So that means if you're actively listening, you have an extra mile of knowing something than someone who is basically hearing and not paying attention to what they're listening at. So I basically think, even when you're dealing with the young ones, the next generation, active listening is really going to help us into making sure their mental health is in check. And actually this calls off the child abuse and harassments, punishments, because if we have myths and misconceptions of when you give birth to a boy, then you make sure you make everything hard for them to make sure they become a man. How many parents have taken up the responsibility to equip themselves with the right guidance, skills of grooming up a boy and grooming up a girl, and so whatsoever, to make sure at least the mental health is protected even when they're in the same journey.
And another percentage of people today are affected mentally because of family conflict that was happening when they were still young. Mom and dad were not in good terms. Mom was talking ill about dad was talking ill. Things, maybe they fight in front of the child, and believe me or not, that thing affects the child in one way or the other. And when this conflict is on the rise, it means in the long run this child is going to be affected.
He's going to be a father tomorrow.
He's going to be a father tomorrow. He's going to be a husband tomorrow. So depending on where they grew up, it means the cycle is going to continue. So if, as the growing generation, we learn how to resolve family conflicts among couples, among husband and wife, mom and dad.
At least to remember that you're a father before going into a fight.
Because look at this child, because especially as Muslims, we don't look at marriage as a satisfaction of the man and woman's desire, but this child is a goal of marriage.
Family formation.
This child is, and we are destroying the family in the name of preserving what we think is right. So I think we need to focus on how do we resolve conflict when it comes our way. Maybe not for us, but for this coming generation too.
Exactly, because that's the purpose of life, and specifically with marriage. And talk about divorce when marriage doesn't work out. Some societies have no respect with that. So the kids end up being like at a cost of
the victims of whatever is happening.
Because imagine giving birth to being a father to a young one and you spend 10 years without seeing them. Of
I
course,
don't want anything to do with that lady.
That is a message indirectly. Even when you come in play after some time, it's not going to be a black and white story. There is a lot that is going to be in the mind.
So it means scholars out there have to dedicate some few times for them to address the Islamic doctrine about divorce. Because I think I'm made to believe that divorce does not mean we are living on bad terms.
True.
Sometimes divorce is supposed to be we are living but on good terms. We are actually not going to forget the good between us, bil ma'ruf. All that has to come in place. But our notion today will be like, if we are separating, we are separating for good. I have nothing to do with you. If we have children, maybe stay with them. So a child is going to grow up not knowing who the father is. Maybe the father is going to take up the child not knowing who the mother is. And obviously a child, research says a child who has grown up with both parents in the picture cannot be the same like the child who has grown up with one or no parents in the picture. And so the mental health is preserved. And talking about that also takes me to a point of bullying and teasing.
And also talk about at least trying your level best to make sure the traumatic experiences are not directed to the child, to these young ones. Definitely protecting them from that. If at all, it shouldn't actually be given to them.
If you have an opportunity to protect them from a traumatizing situation,
then so be it.
Maybe two grown up people, two adults are fighting in public, and you try to close the eyes of this child and say, don't look at that. Or maybe an accident is happening and you protect them from seeing it. Because these things might seem small, but in the long run they affect the mental health of this child.
So I think with that direction, our young generation is protected. And in future there will be at least a band of people who are at least not
so sensitive is the topic that even the Prophet says, if you are giving your children, give them equally.
True.
You focus on the equity point of it when you're giving your children. Why would you give one child a gift and don't give the other? Why would you kiss one child and don't kiss the other? This would create a problem in the long run. A child might think maybe dad loves them more than they love me, and that affects them. Try to encourage them even where failure has come in life. A child has not passed well on the exam, encourage them, please read your books harder. So by doing that, we are nurturing a generation that is not going to look at failure as the end of life, because majority of the mental health cases would be, since I'm failing, that is the end of my life and that is the end of me.
Parenting is actually a task, and if we want to make our next generation free from mental illness, then at least we need to check our parenting tips and parenting styles.
Not only parenting, but we need to look at, as the growing generation, look at all the young ones in our society,
the young ones,
as the coming generation. I need to look at them. How do I preserve it? Remember the Prophet, I don't know whether it was you telling me that the Prophet was moving with this young girl who was holding his two fingers, moving around Medina. And I'm like, the Prophet is not the father of this young girl, but still he's looking at protecting, giving them company, showing them that they matter. This young child, it was something
at one point special. Playing with the little ones,
and that gives them encouragement, momentum, a sense of belonging that you can find in nowhere, especially when they are getting this from someone who is grown up. They least expect that, and you're supposed to give them that to groom them into a generation that is not going to battle a lot with mental health.
I actually think that's why the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, as he continuously used to supplicate for all generations after him. It was like, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give them the best of health. And it doesn't basically make sense when you're putting it to physical health. Mental health is also part of that. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala see us through that and call off the mental illness from our societies, and maybe from all the possibilities that drive us to that.
Amen.